Hello everybody, I'm Zenith and welcome back to Diving Into DuckTales, the show where everything is a parody of Solo. No, just kidding, but today we're going to be talking about an episode that is really good. Once again, we're diving into DuckTales with my good friend Kat Macberrie.
What up?
And, of course, her husband and the most wonderful person in the world, Doug Macberrie. How's it going, Doug?
Oh, you flatter me.
You needed that today. I know you did. Doug has not had a very good day, but we're going to be talking about something that is pretty damn awesome. This episode of DuckTales is one of my favorites. To be perfectly honest, like, I know some people criticized how harsh we were of the episode last time, and to that I say, this episode is the answer. This is what I'm looking for in an episode. It's like, you don't have to tell me everything about all the mysteries and stuff, but we got so much without revealing too much, and I had so much fun. So, Kat, why don't you give us a brief summary of today's episode of DuckTales?
Yes. Today's episode, the Golden Lagoon of White Agony Plains. Man, that's a mouthful. So the plot of this episode is that Scrooge attends a gala that is being held by Glomgold, and while there, he comes across his ex, Goldie O'Gilt. And yeah, Scrooge does not like her. Or he does, but he doesn't. It's complicated. Anywho, after they're reunited, Glomgold reveals his new piece that he's adding to his museum, which is a giant mammoth head. Well, as soon as he reveals it, Goldie flips a switch, the lights go out, and the mammoth head is gone. Turns out that the mammoth head contained a map, or at least part of a map that Scrooge had, that he and Goldie had used to try to find a hidden lake many years ago. And of course, because Goldie is the backstabbing type, she almost killed Scrooge for it, and they have been both searching for the other halves ever since. And now that they both have it again, they are reluctantly teaming up to try to find the mysterious Golden Lake. And we get lots of sexual tension in this.
This episode is pretty straightforward, but it's one of those classic setups that just works. It's very much like an Indiana Jones type of, like, Tomb Raider type of story, where we have two people going after a treasure, and they are in love, but they butt heads, and they both try to backstab each other, and they're all trying to find this treasure. Not National Treasure, that's a different Disney movie, we're gonna get to that. But they essentially, they use this map to find the treasure, and there's a bunch of antics along the way, but it's really these antics that sell the story, especially because the stuff that we learn about Goldie really helps emphasize a lot of the stuff with Scrooge. First of all, we get confirmation of Scrooge's age. He is well over 100 years old.
Yeah, he was around during the gold rush. That is how freaking old he is. And oh my god, I gotta say, David Tennant's Time Lord is showing in this so much. Like, I kid you not. So, yeah, through their dialogue, we discover that part of the reason that Scrooge and Goldie don't look near as old as they really should is because they each went on these sort of mystical adventures, which somehow prevented them from aging. Like, Goldie came across a fountain of youth while Scrooge got stuck in a timeless dimension, and
with some sort of demon.
And I'm like, oh my god, this is such a conversation that Time Lords would have. Like, I can picture the Doctor and River, like, having this conversation.
And it really does bring up the point that I had last week, where it's not about revealing all of the mysteries all one by one, but we have questions in this episode in a single line of conversation answered many of the questions that we've been having since the start of the series without spoiling the mystery.
Yeah, like, I was kind of impressed. Like, on the one hand, it kind of feels, tacked on, but given all the shit that they go through, all the demons and mystical nonsense they come across, this is strangely believable that these two would have gone through all this. And I gotta say, like, I gotta say, like, their interactions throughout this whole episode is like definitely the highlight. Like, Scrooge and Goldie have like the best chemistry. Like, they have the whole like sort of Batman Catwoman thing going on, or something like Sherlock and Irene Adler, because it's like she's like, totally bad to the bone, and that, she will backstab him at every single turn. In fact, they list off the numerous times she has betrayed him, and yet he's always going back to her because he finds that strangely alluring. And it's so bizarre, but so intriguing to watch. Like, I ship it so damn hard.
It's a very intriguing relationship, and to be honest, when I first saw that this episode was going to be about one of his old lovers, I was thinking back to old cartoons, and I was kind of dreading this episode because, unfortunately, a lot of the old school cartoons really did this bad to the point where they, like, were always arguing, and there was no chemistry, and it was just always, like, everyone's fault and all this stuff. But, like, the banter in this episode really sells it. And I think a lot of it is helped by Goldie being charming. You can see exactly where she's coming from. She loves treasure, but she does love Scrooge, but she loves treasure. And there's like this allure to her of, does she really love Scrooge, or is it all just one elaborate ruse? And there's so much back and forth between them, and it's so believable given the acting on display. If it wasn't for this acting, if it wasn't for the characterization and the writing here, this could have been a bad character. But I couldn't look away from their interactions. Not only because it was fun, but it was very, very funny to hear them talk about past adventures and laughing about backstabbing each other, and Scrooge saying, well, it is kind of alluring. Like, he even admits to it.
Yeah, it's just funny to me how, like, she would always be like, oh, come on, why don't you trust me? And he's like, do I really need to, like, list off everything? Because, like, at one point, like, she, like, sold him to pirates. Another point, she, like, tossed him into an abyss, and was like, it just went on, and, like, this is, like, horrible shit, but they're, like, laughing about it. Like, it's almost, a dare between them to see who can one-up each other the most and how horrible they can be. But it's more charming than anything. Especially since you know that they're both, like, really amazing adventurers, so they, like, this is sort of like a challenge for each other to see, like, how they can get out of it, like, in the shortest amount of time or with the least amount of effort. Like I said, I could have, like, I would have been satisfied just watching the two of them the entire episode.
Yeah, to be honest, like, the real thing is them together is just so enjoyable. It's so entertaining. And it's so interesting to see another character that's on Scrooge's level. Have we seen, up until this point, anyone that really compared to Scrooge on an adventuring level that could keep up with him to this extent?
I can't say we have. I mean, I think the closest we've ever, like, heard was probably Della. Like, I know Donald was supposed to be a big adventurer, but I don't think he was on the same level as Scrooge. But, yeah, like, she's pretty up there. I mean, heck, she took down Beakley and Webby. Like, she snuck into Scrooge's mansion, and she tied them both up and locked them in a closet while waiting for Scrooge. It's like, damn.
Yeah, like, she's so skilled that she off-screens them, and when we see them in the wardrobe, she's like, I can't believe you let this person back in your life. And so this has been a constant thing. And that's another thing. They keep alluding to these past scenarios. We get so much history, not just about her, but more about Scrooge. And honestly, up until this point, we've only been drip-fed little things here and there, but to see just, like, how long this has been going on gives us a better extent of Scrooge's extensive backstory.
Yeah. I'm also starting to suspect he might be immortal, or maybe they both might be immortal, probably due to their whole, like, backwards aging thing. Because, like, at one point during at one point while they're telling the background story of about the map, they mentioned that they both fell into, like, this water and were frozen into a glacier for 5 years. They spent 5 years just staring angrily at each other before finally thawing free. And I'm thinking, how did they survive that? Like,
what?
Like, wouldn't they have suffocated? Wouldn't they have starved to death? Wouldn't they have, like, died from hypothermia? Like, how did they survive being frozen?
Maybe it was like cryogenic effect.
Maybe it was all the buffet items he had in his pocket. We'll get to that.
No, but even then, like, because if they were in cryogenic state, they wouldn't be aware of everything going around them. But Scrooge mentions during all the years he spent, like, staring at her, he slowly fell in love with her, and she felt the same way. And you see them, like, you know, smiling at each other, and when their hands thaw, they actually, like, hold hands. So it's like they were aware, like, fully, like, alert the entire time. So, like, I'm just wondering, like, what are these people? Are they, like, you know, wizards or something? Like, I want a little bit of an explanation there.
Scrooge is a Time Lord. What other explanation do you need?
I know, he's like I said, like, David Tennant just leaks into his character so much. It's like, they gotta be Time Lords by this point.
So, Mr. Doug, what are your thoughts on this coupling?
So yeah, I mean, I definitely like this version of Goldie. We definitely saw, like, Kat and I watched, you know, a lot of the old DuckTales, so we saw Goldie in the old days, and she was more innocent. It was just more a matter of circumstances, and, like, she was working for somebody. Whereas here, yeah, she's pretty much acting of her own accord. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting relationship the two of them have, but you could tell it's like she definitely has an attraction to Scrooge, but definitely she's, you know, her love of Scrooge is only topped by, you know, getting treasure or getting, you know, any sort of treasure hunt.
So we have the relationship as part of the backbone of this episode with them adventuring, but actually the big framing device of this entire thing is Glomgold himself. Because
classic Glomgolding.
It's always Glomgold, and it always will be. It always will be. So Glomgold hosts this banquet, this buffet, to which Scrooge fills his pockets with everything. He says his pockets are lined with plastic, and he basically steals a whole bunch of food from Glomgold. But during the buffet is where they have the whole theft of the skull leading to everything going on. But it turns out near the end of the episode that Glomgold had hired Goldie so that he could find the River of Gold for himself. And he keeps referring to Goldie as his girlfriend, even though both of them insist that's not true.
I love the backstory, like, he comes up with about, you know, having seen her the night before, and they do, like, a comic book style flashback. And Glomgold's like this big debonair smashing guy.
They changed the animation for that one scene.
Oh God.
I did like that part. I admit it. Like, I will say I won't say I didn't like Glomgold in this, because I did. He's always enjoyable no matter what. But I kind of enjoyed the interaction between Scrooge and Goldie so much that I felt that we didn't really need Glomgold involved in this. Because, I mean, we already have an antagonist in Goldie, you know, constantly backstabbing Scrooge. So do we really have to add another one on top of that? Plus, it's not like it was a twist that, she was, like, in cahoots with him. Is kind of saw it coming. I mean, like, he's kind of there, just to be, I guess, relieve the sexual tension between the two. But, I mean, he's still enjoyable nonetheless. Especially toward the end when he talks shit about his own tech.
Faulty glom gold tech pipes. Like, here's the thing. I do agree with you that in theory, it is kind of unnecessary for Glomgold to be there, considering we did already have a villain. But the thing is, I can never get enough of Glomgold because he leads to the funniest jokes in the show. And for some reason, even though he's shown up a lot recently, I haven't gotten tired of him. I don't think he's been overplayed too much, which is a good thing. Like, you can definitely overplay a character and overutilize him. But Glomgold just has some of the most funny lines. Like, there's a giant battle near the end of the episode where they're having a fight between two pickaxes, which is more like a dance between Goldie and Scrooge. And Glomgold's like, I have a pick too, and he picks up a shovel. And as they're fighting, he keeps finding buffet items from the banquet that are falling out of Scrooge's pocket. He's like, man, I really need to stop doing the buffet next year. Like, he leads to the most funny moments. And while I do agree, Kat, that theoretically having another villain kind of does rob a little bit from Goldie, I was laughing so much this episode. And here is another thing that's good about it. This is a good episode balance between humor, action, adventure, and story. This has all three, because some of the earlier episodes were either just comedy or either just a story episode or a character-focused episode or something like that. This does everything and managed to do everything in such a short amount of time, and yet it's still it's pacing. It's like every single thing works to the extent where, like, I could watch this multiple different times. Not quite as much as Spear of Selene, that's still my favorite, but this is a close second right now.
Yeah, I definitely do rank it up there in terms of it. Like you said, there wasn't really any part of the episode I disliked. Although I did find Huey, Dewey, and Louie really annoying because they were like, they were doing the typical, kid reaction to romance. It's like, ooh, look who has a crush. It's like, shut the fuck up, my god. It's like, on the one hand, it's realistic because they're kids. Kids tend to act like that around romance. Like, it's either ew, romance, or ooh, you're in love. That sort of teasing thing. But dear god, it was annoying.
I mean, thankfully there were only like 2 scenes, so it really wasn't that distracting.
Yeah.
But I do agree, like, I don't think their addition was necessary outside of the banquet. Them at the banquet was funny because Glomgold, jealous of Scrooge and Goldie taking up the dance floor, starts to dance with, I believe, Dewey?
Yeah.
Who starts dancing better than him, and so he gets upset.
Stop dancing better than me!
I can't help it.
Like I said, Glomgold is one of the funniest parts of this show, and I can't get enough of him. Here's a thought. If they were to make him just the comic relief villain to foil against every, not every, but most of the main villains in the show, so that every single time, one of the major villains would show up, Glomgold would come in and just do something incompetent to ruin their plans. I think that kind of dynamic is what he adds to the show. It's just he's a villain like Dr. Doofenshmirtz or say a Dr. Draken in Camp, or the Monarch, or Dr. Draken. He is a self-foiling villain. Mm-hmm. And in order to have him work, if they were ever to do a serious episode, they would have to team him with a more competent villain, and that's kind of what they do here. admittedly, I would have liked to have him teamed up with a different villain, but there's many more episodes in the future, and honestly, like, Glomgold just, thank you.
I can just imagine now how, like, the finale's gonna end. It's gonna be like Magica comes back to power, she gets the dime, she has the family held hostage, and she's about to, like, unleash her evil plan, and then Glomgold just stumbles in his, like, one-man's, like, army to, like, take down Scrooge, not realizing what else is going on, and he just ends up foiling her plans through his own ineptitude. I can just see that happening.
But I had sharks in the buffet. Why does the buffet never distract anybody?
I gotta say, the ending left a interesting, like, I don't want to say cliffhanger, but like potential like plot line or maybe like another mystery or something set up. Because after Goldie takes off, having stolen all the liquid gold for herself, Scrooge comes back home and he finds a package and a note left for him from Goldie, and it's a little coin with a note that says, "If you ever need some gold, look for me." So, and the interesting thing I looked up about this is that the gold coin she gave him it's the same coin but smaller that you see in an episode of the pilot from the original series, from the Treasure of the Golden Sun. And it was basically the city of gold. Like, Scrooge, like, ends up getting, like, gold fever from, like, you know, rolling around in all the gold. So I'm wondering if maybe she found the lost city of gold and he might, you know, go on an adventure to said place. Like, that would be interesting.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Like, because they set up a potential lead-in for her to come back, and they don't leave her as an antagonist. Like, she's very much in the realm of anti-hero, and I think that this episode does a good job of showcasing that. She's not completely evil, but she's not completely good. And I love that about her. I think this is a different dynamic in a show that's mostly just heroes and villains up until this point. Well, with the exception of Launchpad, who's just, you know, in between. He's completely neutral. And I do want to say, one thing I love about the ending is how they foreshadow what's going to happen. Because there's a point in the beginning of the episode where she points out that she has this amulet that protects her from any type of burns. And it comes up in casual conversation, kind of the same way that they talk about, like, you know, being in a time dimension, and drinking from the Fountain of Youth. So you think they're just talking about their adventures. Well, later in the episode, as they're fighting over the gold, well, Goldie falls in the River of Gold and turns into a statue. Until we realize that, oh wait, she has that amulet, so she's completely fine, she breaks out, and she steals all the gold. Like, I love that twist.
I gotta say, I legit thought she was dead at that point, because I had totally forgotten about, like, the amulet's powers. Because, like you said, they mention it so casually, you don't think it's gonna be, like, a plot point. But then, like, they show, like, her sinking into the gold, and you're thinking, oh shit, she melted? And then they show her, like, gold-encrusted corpse, and I'm like, oh god, this is morbid. But then, like, they crack it open, and she's gone, and then you see the amulet, it's like, aha, okay.
Clever girl. So, yeah, like, this episode, in many ways is straightforward, and doesn't really, have too many major elements, but the thing is, it's so streamlined, it's so focused on telling, a good story and an enjoyable story, but it also injects, like, all these little things into the mix that really add to the world lore. Doug, so what do you think of, like, Goldie's twist at the end of this episode?
I'm with you. Yeah, it was like one of those things. You remember it only after, you know, they bring it up again. But yeah, it was a good twist. They made it very subtle, so it was like it wasn't like a, you know, MacGuffin or anything. So yeah, I was definitely happy with that twist. I mean, I don't really know what else there is to say about that.
Yeah, like, to be honest, I'm kind of struggling to come up with anything more to talk about this episode. Not because this isn't a good episode. It's fantastic, but it's one of those episodes that really I think you need to watch to really appreciate. There's not too many major plot points. A lot of it is sold based on the banter between these two characters. A lot of it is rests on the shoulders of Goldie as a character, and Goldie is such a good character, and that only really comes through with her writing. And the same thing with Glomgold. Like, Glomgold, you just have to watch this episode, guys. Like,
I do kind of want to discuss Glomgold for a minute, if I may.
Go on.
Yeah, I know. First off, I definitely want to agree with you on, like, yeah, it's like we've been exposed to him for like 4 episodes in a row, and you would think, yeah, the shtick would get old after that, but yeah, it certainly does not. I'm still enjoying him just as much as you are, and it's really a testament, you know, because Kat and I have been watching the old DuckTales, and it's like whenever the Glomgold in that version, the 80s version, comes up, he's kind of boring, or he's like an extreme asshole, but not to the over the top level where it's really enjoyable. It's just kind of like, you don't really like him as much. And like, I think Kat and I watched the worst Glomgold episode last night, where it's like the Hidden Tannic, and
God.
it's like Glomgold in that is just incredibly competent, and it's just kind of like, you know, a lot of the stuff goes wrong. He didn't even need to be there, but he's just trying to ensure that his, that Scrooge loses a bet to him. But it's like, yeah, with Glomgold in this series, it's like completely topsy-turvy, and you just love every minute of it.
Yeah, because the old one, like, he goes in between being incompetent and competent when the, like, plot suits it. Because there are times where he's, like, 3 steps ahead of Scrooge, but then there are other times where he makes really stupid business decisions that Scrooge takes advantage of. So, like Doug said, it makes him boring, it makes him, like, inconsistent, and, you know, it's more of like just an annoyance. Like, he's just, you know, an antagonist. There's nothing fun about him. Like, the fact that he's, you know, such a bumbling, incompetent villain and is so over the top and just loves being evil and enjoys, like, every single plan he does, like, in Spoiling Scrooge, is just what gives him that charm that just, you know, makes it impossible to, like, to be tired of him or, like, hate him or anything. Like I said, despite the fact how I feel in this episode that, you know, we didn't really need him this episode, I still enjoyed him. Like, come on, he's Glomgold.
I think another thing that works about Glomgold is the unpredictability, because while he does have his standard go-tos like planting a bomb or the buffet, I didn't know how he was going to connect to this episode, and I didn't really expect a lot of the things that he was going to do. Because while he is predictable in his ineptability, his methods tend to vary, and I also was not expecting him to have like Glomgold tech faulty pipes. Now, this raises another question. So, is he like a businessman? Like, is he a plumber? Like, does he make like pipes or something like that?
Well, he has several businesses. He's like Scrooge in that, you know, he invests into, like, several different, like, things. Like, the problem is, like Scrooge, he's also cheap, and he cuts corners a lot more than Scrooge does. Like, that's the whole thing, is that he wants to be like Scrooge, but he's an incompetent businessman, and he lacks any of the humanity and, like, sense of hard, honest work that Scrooge has.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, and he wants to be, you know, more popular than Scrooge.
And more Scottish.
More Scottish.
But like I said, that adds another layer to the character. Like, I don't ask for much in the way of, like, reveals when it comes to individual episodes. All I ask is for, like, little things that help tie in more into the character or help me understand these things better. Because right now, what we can say about all the other villains so far, Glomgold is a businessman. We know how he operates. We know how he works. We can say the same thing about Ma Beagle. We can say the same thing about Mark Beeks. We know through all these little interactions and stuff they say throughout the episodes who they are, what they're all about, and we also know their characterization, because those are two different things. What they do and what their character is are two different things, and now we're getting that. And I think what I'm looking for in the future when they're getting to Magica is I want to know just a little bit of her deal. Because as someone who hasn't watched the original, I don't know anything about her. I don't know, if she's just an evil person who runs a Transylvanian castle or not. I get her characterization now, but I want to know a little bit about the business side.
Well, to be fair, the original series didn't really go much into her background either. Like, you knew that she was a sorceress and that she apparently has, like, this century-long feud with Scrooge, but they don't exactly go into detail of, like, how that started or why it's ongoing or why she, like, is so intent on getting his #1 dime other than its, magical potentials. So, I'm wondering if maybe they're gonna, like, invent a whole new, like, backstory for her with this, because I would hate for them to go the typical she's just evil route that some shows tend to go. So I am looking forward to, like, given all the good stuff we've gotten, with them fleshing out the other villains, I do hope that they do the same with Magica, because why not? It's granted, not every villain needs to have motivation or a backstory or something, but something just to make her more endearing, like the way that we like Glomgold and the way we're entertained by, Mark Beeks and Ma Beagle and all that. It would be nice.
Yeah, that's all I ask. I'm not asking to spoil any of the mystery of the reveal, because the mystery is so damn intriguing. Although, at the moment, I'm more interested in Della Duck, because we haven't heard any more since the Spear of Selene. And knowing how these things, knowing how this, how these episodes are paced out by now, I'm guessing that we're going to get something within the next 3 episodes or so, maybe, because they tend to space them out. Like, we've definitely had plot lines here and there, like the Gizmo Duck plot line has been spread out, the plot line with Della Duck has been spread out, Magica's been spread out, and now we have the introduction of the plot lines with Goldie, which it's probably going to be spread out as well. So they definitely have a little bit more time before we learn a little bit more about Della Duck, but I kind of want to know when the next Della reveal is gonna be, because I wonder what's going on with that.
Well, I think we might get something in the next episode, although I can't really say for certain since I've only seen the promo for it. I do know the plot of the next episode, the Day of the Only Child, is that the triplets all decide that they want to be only children for a day, and somehow that magically happens. Like, they each live individual lives. Like, Huey is now in with the Beagle Boys, and Louie is the only heir to Scrooge's fortune or whatever, and Dewey has some really dark thing going on. I'm wondering if that might have something to do with his mother. I don't know. But I mean, like I said, we'll find out. We're really not getting a lot of hints for next episode, although they do introduce a character from the old series that I'm kind of annoyed about. Yeah, I was wondering when this would happen. They're bringing back Doofus Drake. Ugh. Dear God. For those who don't know, Doofus Drake, he was the token fat kid in the original show. He was there just to be dumb and fat and stupid and basically fawn over Launchpad at every turn. He was only character I hated more than Launchpad himself. And I'm not sure what they're gonna do with him in this version. It looks like he's gonna be friends with Louie. But I don't know. I guess we'll wait and see. I mean, I've been surprised before. But yeah, I mean, I am looking forward to the next one, but not so much.
You never know. I mean, I don't know too much about Doofus myself, but I've been pleasantly surprised by this wave of episodes. Everything from the Spear of Selene to here has been fantastic. Last year we got a huge slew of great episodes from concepts that I didn't think I was going to like. So you never know.
I am hoping to be surprised. I am. I don't want to, like, go into this, like, thinking, oh, great, they brought the fat kid back. But, on the other hand, I'm, like, still kind of nervous. Because, like I said, I don't like characters like that. Characters that, they only have the one trait, and usually with fat kids, it's like, oh, their whole shtick is that, they like to eat, and that's apparently funny. Like Rolly and the 101 Dalmatians thing we just did. Like,
yeah.
I'm really wondering what they plan to do with this one. If he's gonna be, like, just there as a cameo, or it be essential to the plot. Who knows? Like, we'll just have to wait and see.
All I can hope right now is that they do more with it than just the fat kid shtick. Like you said, we just got done with the 101 Dalmatians marathon, and that's 5 separate things where Rolly's entire thing was that he was fat, and it's not funny. It's I don't even know. Like, that's not a stereotype. It's just I don't get it. With that being said, Kat, do you want to dive into your final thoughts on this episode?
Oh, in terms of the Golden Lagoon episode, I love it. I totally love it. Like I said, the Scrooge and Goldie's, like, interactions are, like, the biggest highlight of this. I love how they play off each other. I love their chemistry. Like, you can just, like, feel, like, all the sparks radiating between them. I like how she's always trying to backstab him, and Scrooge, through his own, like, awesomeness, manages to overcome it, including his miraculous ability to speak bear, because, again, Time Lord. Like I said, I enjoyed Glomgold. Like I said, I didn't feel he was completely necessary, but he was enjoyable nonetheless. I like the twist. And I do look forward to seeing if they bring her back in future episodes, and if this is another potential plot line we're going to get in the future. So, yeah, I definitely recommend this.
Mm-hmm. And Mr. Doug?
I disagree, because we still haven't gotten Duckworth back.
Yeah, we still haven't seen him. Where the hell has he been? Is he, like, gone now? Did he come back for that one episode? Like, what the hell?
Could be. But yeah, no, I agree with everything you said. I mean, I don't know really what else I can say that we haven't already talked about. That, it was a very good episode. I just don't have much more to add to that.
Well, my final thoughts, I think this is a fantastic episode. I wish there was more that we could kind of add to this, aside from the fact that the, Glomgold's brilliant, the jokes are on point, the relationship between Goldie and Scrooge is great and believable, and is much better than I thought it would be. Yeah, like, that's pretty much all I can say on the episode for now. Like, looking back, it's an episode you have to watch. If you see any episode, watch this one first. You really don't need any context for this episode, but this is a great jumping on point because it shows the show at its best, and you really don't need too much context to understand the jokes and whatnot. So yeah, overall, I love this episode. I give it a full Zenith stamp of approval. DuckTales 2017 is going really great so far. I'm really looking forward to the next batch of episodes. With that being said, I am Zenith Rule.
I'm Kat Macberrie.
I'm Doug Macberrie.
And we will see you guys next time on Diving Into DuckTales, where hopefully everything's still good. In the meantime, why not, stop over and check out the Steven Universe retrospective on Season 1 that Kat and I just put out. We put a lot of heart and soul into that one. So if you guys like Steven Universe, check that out. If not, we also have the Disney debate, which is on break right now. while we're talking about DuckTales, but if you want to, check out all our past episodes, we have a lot available for you to watch, and a lot of it is on shows that I think you might like, if you like DuckTales. With all that being said, have a good one, guys.
TTFN, ta-ta for now.
And just remember, once again, you think that Glomgold won't be in an episode, but it will always be Glomgold. It always will be.
Hey, this is Megami33. Thank you for watching Zenith Will Review. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more awesome videos. If you like what you see, check out the Patreon page at patreon.com/ZenithWillReview.